Well, welcome back. Welcome to the Andy Social Podcast. For those that don't know, my name is Andy Dowling, and thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a couple of months, probably more than that now, 2.5 months since my last episode. A lot's happened, a lot hasn't happened, and this episode is a little bit of a catch-up episode. I'll try not to waffle on too much, but if you haven't been listening to this podcast series for a while, or you know me, you'll know that that's a very hard thing for me to do. But I'll try not to get, too off track as I go through everything that's been happening over the last couple of months. First and foremost, for those that haven't heard this podcast before and want to know what it's all about, I suggest you go back and listen to one of the episodes that has a guest involved. It's not just me waffling on. You'll get a better sense of what this is all about. Basically, what I'm doing is just finding people near and far, whether it be in the local community, people that I know that I've been friends with for years, or just people that interest me, and just having a chat to them. There's no life hacks. There's no optimized, focus with the podcast. Yeah, I'm going to be a bit rough on this episode. There's no real purpose to it apart from finding out about people and finding out through conversation. We're in an age now where most people would rather send messages to each other than talk, and I'm certainly one of them. And this podcast is a way for me personally to, improve my communication better. And I hope that since the first episode to now, my communication has been improving. Certainly nowhere near an effective communicator. I could certainly be a lot better. So that's a big thing for me, and I think stories are important as well. So when someone's got something interesting to say, it's nice to be able to have that through conversation and listen to what people are interested in, what people do, what people have experienced, and even just perspective on life as well, just to find out, how do people view their life? How do people view their lives around them and the people around them? And I'm hoping that the people that do listen in, and I hope that myself as well, learn things from the conversation with other people. So it's very vague, it's very open. More or less, I'm just chatting to people. It's not the most original format going, but I like to think over the 50-odd episodes I've done on the past 12 months, and wow, I've just realised that it's been over 12 months since the first episode. So it's pretty cool that I'm still picking up a microphone now, even though there's been a slight delay, and still doing it. It's good to see I've managed to hold on and follow through with this idea that I had 12 months ago. This episode is a little bit of a catch up, a bit of housekeeping, and get everyone back on track. And for me, just to, use this podcast platform as an excuse to get a few thoughts out there and document it for myself, so I can listen back one day down the track in years to come and see where my mind was at, see what my thoughts were as to what I've experienced, especially having some big life moments for me. I think if anything, it's just something for myself, a little bit of personal reflection. But the cool thing about this is that I can share this with others as well. Before I dive into it all, a few little things I need to mention, more or less some thank yous. Thank you to everybody that's been listening to the podcast, especially over the last 2 odd months where I haven't been putting out new episodes. I was really paranoid and worried. I actually went through a bit of a mental crisis at one point about this podcast, and was worried that the listenership would really die down and I would be more or less forgotten as far as a podcast goes, just due to not being active and pushing out more episodes. But I've been pleasantly surprised when I finally built up the courage to look at my podcast stats that it's been fairly steady. It has dropped a little bit, but it's been a hell of a lot better than I thought it would be. So I'm very, very flattered and grateful for everybody that's been listening to the episodes and going back and playing catch up or deciding to give it a go for the first time. So that's really cool. Also, a massive thanks to people that have been using the Amazon portal link on my website. So that's andysocial.net. Very quickly, for people that don't know what it is a unique link that's been created for me by Amazon. And what you do is, if you do shop on Amazon, instead of going to amazon.com, you can click on andysocial.net and click on this link that takes you straight to Amazon. Now, what's in it for you? Not much. It's mainly for me. Nothing changes with your shopping experience. You don't lose any money. There's no discounts involved, unfortunately. But the really cool thing, at least for me, is that if you do take the time to make that extra couple of clicks to get to the website, you will be helping the Andy Social podcast by Amazon giving me a small commission or a small percentage, and it is very, very small, of every purchase that you make. So for me, even though it's a small amount of money, it is starting to build up, and it is being used to self-fund this podcast. So it's not a huge expense for me, but I do have monthly fees of hosting and whatnot. I bought a bunch of equipment, and in future, I'd like to be able to have a sort of budget that I can use to be able to improve this podcast, whether that be quality, or it be the content itself and being able to get out there and talk to more people. So the little extra steps that you guys take will certainly have a massive impact for me. And to be honest, it's a good way to donate to the podcast without actually donating any of your money directly to me. If you want to be sneaky or clever about it, what you can do is go to my website first and do a right click on the Amazon portal link. Just copy the link and then save that into your favorites toolbar on your browser or onto your smartphone. So at least then you're not actually going to my website, although I definitely encourage you to do so. But if you want to make it easier for yourself, you can just save that unique affiliate link and paste that into your toolbar, so you can just go to that link each time and not even think about it, just act like you're shopping on Amazon as per normal. But a massive thank you for those people that have been using it. It's so cool to see this thing work. I was a little bit dubious of the format and how it works and whether it's even worth my time, but it's certainly been working, and it's cool to see a little bit of money coming back for the podcast. So thank you so much. And for those people that don't shop on Amazon and don't have a great deal of money, that's totally cool. The fact that you're listening to this podcast and giving me a download is more than I could ask for. So thank you so much. And if you do want to do anything more than listen, the best thing to do is just spread the word. Word of mouth is the best way of marketing, as everybody has always said. And that certainly has a massive impact on getting more people to listen to the podcast. And if you want to make it easier, all the episodes are usually, well, not usually, they all are uploaded onto my YouTube channel, which is, let's see if I can remember this, youtube.com/C for Charlie /Andy Dowling, one word, and everything will be on there. Now, if you're on Facebook and you see you've liked the Andy Social podcast page, then you'll see all the YouTube links being posted on there fairly regularly. So I try and do a few reposts of each episode just to give them plenty of traction, and that's a great way to get people into the podcast, or even just to get an understanding of what podcasts are all about as well. You can pass a YouTube link over. Most people are familiar with YouTube, and it's a great way just to ease somebody into the whole world of podcasting, or at least for this show at the very least. I will leave the rest of the stuff till the end of this episode as far as the podcast itself and what's going on moving forward, because I think the last couple of months leads up to where I'm at now. So I'm going to try and tell a story. Now, it's not a story that I've put any effort into or any thought. I've more or less wrote out a bunch of sticky notes to try and remember in order of sort of key points or key things that happened over the last 2.5 odd months. So I'll dive into that, and just a massive thank you again for everybody listening. And if you do lose interest with this, and this is the first time you've listened to the podcast, please go back and listen to some of the other ones with some fantastic guests that I've listened to, well, I actually have listened to because I spoke to them, that I've spoken to over the last 12 months. There's everyone from musicians to, professor. I've got a professor on there. I've got ex-military. I've got pilots. I've got so many people on there from many different walks of life, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to broaden that spectrum more in the future as well. So let's take a step back. 2.5 months ago, roughly, I was getting ready to get married. Now, for those that have listened to the previous podcast where I did a bit of a life update, you will know where my head was at and where things were going at that point in time. And I was about a week out from my wedding, and doing a bit of reflection, then trying to, I guess, center myself before my big day. And it certainly was a big day. It's funny listening to people and having listened to people over the years, and certainly leading up to my own wedding, where when I told people I was getting married, I would get comments like, make sure you stay in the moment. The day goes so quickly that you won't realize what's going on. It's overwhelming. Make sure you really embrace it and take in what's happening around you. It's a day for you, and comments like that, and also other comments which I got in theory but didn't really believe, was, this will be the best day of your life. Now, upon reflection of my wedding day, which I'll get into, I have to say that it's all true, at least for me. And maybe I've been prepped to think a certain way and be mentally prepared to believe these things, but I certainly understand why people say that, and I get it. The day went so quickly. Before I knew it, it was over. We were leaving the venue, and I had no idea what had just happened over the last several hours. It was an environment where your senses were constantly being tested, and not tested, I mean, in a challenging way, just in the sense that, you were constantly hearing, seeing things, you were having to interact, you were having to pay attention. So many people to talk to and converse with, and making sure that you're aware of the situation, the people around you, and trying not to miss people as well. Really, for me, in my head, not so much that I was trying to make it special for me, but I was trying to make it special for other people. And I was really making sure that I was getting around and talking to people, and really sort of, I guess, being thankful and showing my gratitude. Sometimes I'm not very good at doing this, but I did my best to try and show my gratitude for people making the effort to come to my wedding. By the end of the day, I was so exhausted because I'd constantly been switched on for the day. And I certainly wasn't used to that, at least to that velocity for that length of time. And it certainly was the best day of my life. Apart from a couple of little things that in hindsight don't really matter, but and I'll get to them in a moment, it was a perfect day. Everything went perfectly. There was no hiccups. All the worries that people had about things that potentially could go wrong didn't go wrong. Even things such as the weather. The weather looked horrible with the week leading up to our wedding, and right up to the day before. And the next morning, the skies parted, and we had a beautiful day. And there was only a little bit of rain in the afternoon, but by that stage, it didn't matter because we didn't need the weather at all. So we were incredibly lucky with everything. Everybody appeared to have a great time. It was just a great atmosphere. People were so happy, and it was just such a unique, well, of course it's unique because I've never been married before, and I hope that I'm never married again, but it was such a unique environment to be in, being on the other side of the fence. So I've been to plenty of weddings before, and quite frankly, I don't enjoy them, and I still think that way. I've got a few weddings coming up now, and I'm happy for the bride and groom, and I'm sure it's going to be a great day for them, but it's just something that I just can't get into. There's just too many things there that irk me and are awkward and whatnot. And I'm sure once I actually do go to the next wedding, I'll probably have a bit more of a better perspective of the whole thing. But I think my opinion overall won't shift terribly much. But being on the other side of the fence and being the married couple is certainly a completely different experience, and I can understand why people have so much joy and happiness on their wedding day, and why so many people reflect with so much happiness and joy when they think about and talk about their wedding as well. I get it now. I understand why. So what many of you will remember is leading up to my wedding, I had a dilemma. I had a wedding suit that didn't fit. I bought wedding suits for myself and my two groomsmen, and we went and got them altered. Now, I made the mistake of not including Jessica, or at least a female, to come along and just oversee the measurements and for the alterations. I just thought, this is going to be a boys' day out. We're going to go and get the suits altered, and then we're going to go and have a drink afterwards. And so out of my stubbornness, that came back and bit me on the ass. So what had happened was my two groomsmen, Mark and Tonchi, their suits were fine, no issues whatsoever. But for me, she just brought that jacket in too much. So I had a struggle trying to get it on and get it buttoned up. So either she'd brought it in too much, or I had ballooned out since the alteration was done. So I gave myself a challenge at the time, because everyone was panicking, as everybody does when it comes to a wedding, and we're getting quite close to the wedding day itself. There's talk about just ditching the suit and getting a brand new one, which me, being a complete tight ass, didn't want to do. And quite frankly, clothes shopping gives me a heart attack. There is no anxiety like clothes shopping for me. So I wanted to do everything possible to avoid that, and to really demonstrate the extremes that I'll go to, I decided to give myself a fitness challenge for 28 days, which is what I had, to lose a bit of weight around the midsection to fit into my suit jacket. So on my YouTube channel, I started doing videos. I started doing morning and evening videos of my morning jogs, evening jogs, little updates here and there. I did lose momentum a couple of times and didn't get daily videos up, but more or less I stuck to it, and I did lose some weight. I would say overall it was a success, because I did fit into the suit jacket, although a little tight still, but I actually could do it up, and look, it did its job, so it was fine. But the other thing that was tied in with this was I did dry July. My wedding was at the end of August, and by the end of July, when I realised that I had a dilemma on my hands, I decided, well, I can't start drinking again, because this is going to throw me out of whack and my challenge isn't going to work. It's just going to be a waste of effort. So I decided to not drink in August as well, leading up to my wedding. So this is all great. I was quite surprised with myself. I had some discipline. I was getting up early and going for runs. And it was quite rewarding, actually. And there was a lot of things I think it helped me with my, I guess, from a mental point of view, it helped me sort of calm down and get some perspective and clarity as to what was happening, because life was moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. That wasn't just the wedding coming up, but we had a US trip coming up for the band, playing at Prog Power, and then there was a lengthy honeymoon that still needed to be finalised and booked in and whatnot. So there was a lot of things happening, and including the day-to-day grind of work and life, and making sure that you keep everything in check. So for me, the exercise really did wonders for my mental health and keeping me in line and in check. So, I guess it goes without saying, there's definitely a number of positive side effects to and benefits to exercise, and that's something I'm definitely going to have to get back into now that I'm back home and back into the grind of everyday life. But with the alcohol, the day before, we decided to hire an apartment that was near the venue, the wedding venue. So myself and my two groomsmen, Mark and Tonchi, we stayed there just so we're all together, and it was easy to get to the venue the next day. There was no hassle. So what had happened is Tonchi and I met up early in the afternoon, and I thought, well, you know what? It's the day before my wedding. I've been really good. I've met my goal. And, if I have a couple of drinks today, it's not really going to matter. I mean, if it hasn't worked by now, it's not going to work at all. And so Tonchi and I went to the bar that was the pub that was basically next door to the apartment. And we just, we didn't binge drink, but we just steadily drank for the next 8 or so hours. So Mark turned up eventually. Mark doesn't drink anymore. So he came along, and we had dinner and just chilled out and had a chat. And then and then went back to the apartment and had an early night. I think we were in bed by about 10 o'clock or something like that by the time we got back. But mind you, Tonchi and I started about 2 p.m. So we were pretty happy by the time we got back, but we weren't wasted. Anyway, because I hadn't drunk for 2 months and went into an 8-hour drinking session, the next morning I was not in a good place. My wedding day, meeting the stereotype, the typical story of the hungover groom. So I woke up and tried to cleanse myself as best as I could. Didn't quite work. Was certainly in a haze. And then I started getting paranoid, going, oh God, I'm just going to smell like alcohol. It's going to be seeping out of my pores. Doesn't matter how much I brush my teeth and chew gum. It's just, Jess is going to smell it and I'm just going to be a mess. And then I decided, well, there's a couple of beers in the fridge. I may as well just do hair of the dog and see what happens. And I had one beer and luckily that got me back on track. And after a big breakfast that we had, I was okay. So the red alert could be turned off, and I was fine. So it was a bit of a shock to the system first thing in the morning, that was for sure. So with the wedding day itself, we had 150 guests by, I guess, Italian standards. My now wife being of Italian background, not myself. 150 is quite modest, and I'm extremely thankful that we only had 150. But it did mean that a lot of people couldn't come. So I know that there'll be people that will listen to this that didn't get an invite. There were many friends of mine over the years and important people in my life that didn't get an invitation to come. Now, it wasn't because they were not worthy to be there to the wedding. I think every person that has been married will be able to relate to this situation. And it was just simply, we couldn't afford it. It was just way too many people. So we really had to be careful with the 150 that we picked. And those people were picked for certain reasons. And unfortunately, there was a lot of people that couldn't make it, or we couldn't invite. So we were very thankful for the people that did come. We had family. My family are from Queensland. Jess's are all from Sydney. So we had people coming from Queensland, including a lot of old school friends of mine, people that I've known for years, friends that have come up from Victoria, an old school friend that came from Western Australia. I had people coming from almost every corner of the country, which was fantastic. I also had some great friends come from Japan as well. So we had Issei Honda and Yuki come along as well. I say Issei Honda in full because I just love his surname and I always call him Honda-san. But it was amazing for them to just pay the amount of money that they would have had to have paid to come to Australia for a wedding, and they were literally there for the weekend. The Japanese, unfortunately, don't get a lot of time off, and they have to do a bit of wheeling and dealing with their employers to get time. And we invited quite a few friends from Japan, but many of them couldn't come, which was completely reasonable and understanding. But we were absolutely blown away that Yuki and Honda were able to come, and they had an amazing time. And it was great to see them meet our families and our friends. And I think a lot of new friendships were formed that night, which was really cool. The ceremony itself, we didn't have it at a church, mainly because I'm stubborn and I'd be a complete hypocrite if I found myself in a church getting married, because I'm just not of any religious faith. So we had it done in at the reception venue as a ceremony. So we had a celebrant there. It was a really, really nice day. Everything was beautifully set up, lots of flowers and I don't know, the usual stuff that's set up at a wedding. You guys will know what that all is. And yeah, we went through the ceremony. It was a very quick one, no fuss, but very, very touching and overwhelming for me. I remember as a kid, I used to watch funny home videos, watch all the wedding videos of the grooms throwing up or fainting or whatever at the altar. And even our celebrant had warned me, because we were doing our own vows, and I was determined that I was going to say my own. And I had a very strict warning that I needed to not let my ego get in front of me, more or less. Because on the day it's very different, and even the most confident of people struggle to compose themselves on such a day. Now, I took that with a grain of salt, and I didn't think I really would have any issues whatsoever. But standing there at well, there's no altar, but standing there waiting for Jess to arrive, I definitely felt a sense of panic. My legs would, well, they felt like jelly, and my heart was just about to burst out of my chest. I had never felt nerves like that ever before, not the way that I did on that day. So I was quite surprised with how I reacted to it. And I guess standing there with, 150 odd people sitting and standing, all looking at me, waiting for somebody to arrive. I guess maybe it's the anticipation that gets you. Maybe it's the fact that you're standing there waiting. I think that's probably the real torture of it all. It's probably not so much that you're standing there in front of people, because I generally don't have a real issue with standing in front of people and talking. It's more of that anticipation of standing there and waiting. And Jess didn't arrive fashionably late, or not that I can remember anyway, but that period of time just standing there waiting for it to all kick off was, I think that was the real killer. That was when I was really starting to get dry in the mouth and try and find some water and try and keep myself hydrated. And so I was very surprised and taken back by that. For the vows themselves, I had written them out on a really shitty scrap piece of paper, but luckily our celebrant had already had a copy of my vows and had a nice little laminated piece of paper. So I used that, which looked a hell of a lot better. And I'm sure there wouldn't have been as many eyebrows raised if I ripped out a horrible scrap piece of paper from my pocket. But everything went well. We didn't really stumble through any of it. I think from at least my perspective, from what I can remember, because it is pretty hazy now, it went really well. And it was probably one of the only moments where I was totally in the moment. And I struggle with this all the time. I'm always thinking about the next things, worrying about what's going next. Has something else been organised? Who's where? And is someone going to be ready to press the next thing or do the next step or whatever it is? But I was totally in the moment, and I was fixated on Jess, and I was listening, attentively to our celebrant, and it was just, I was just amazed at myself at the way that I reacted to the whole thing. I guess just you can't really pick it really until you're there in the moment. So it was really cool. A quick mention with the ceremony itself, for the people that did come and are listening to the podcast, if anybody's curious as to the music that we used for the ceremony, we picked a pianist by the name of Nicholas McCarthy. I actually discovered him from the Tim Ferriss podcast. We both did, actually. We both listened to the episode with him individually, and we just both happened to mention him in passing, and luckily, it ticked the boxes. But he's a pianist from the UK that was born with one hand, and listening to his music, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't pick it. It's quite incredible. And that was the music that we used for when the guests arrived, when Jess walked down the aisle, when we signed all the documents, and actually that was it. So we had 3 different pieces of music that we used for those particular sections of the ceremony. The last song that we used on the way out after the ceremony had ended was Joe Satriani's Love Thing. That was a song that, for me, I guess when Crystal Planet came out, so that'd been 97, 98 or something like that. And me being a teenager, that song, for whatever reason, every time I listened to it, I got goosebumps. It was just an incredibly cool track. And I've always been a big Satriani fan. And I don't know, I just always, not that I consciously thought that I would have it for my wedding, but I always thought that this was a kind of wedding song. So when I was going through the painstaking process of picking music for the entire wedding, when I came across that song, it clicked, and I said, I have to have it in there. So Jess was cool, and I was very lucky that Jess was happy with the song and wanted it in there as well. So it was a nice little touch to have a bit of me, or a bit of us, in the ceremony itself. I mean, a pianist is really nice and whatnot, but it doesn't correctly reflect us so much. But the Satriani track was a nice ending to the ceremony itself. I guess just a little bit of context to why I picked these songs themselves. Going to weddings over the years, I always had a cringe moment when I heard music being played during the ceremony that had lyrics. I think that's just me, probably more so than anybody else. But when I hear lyrics, I mean, there's a couple of things that happen. A lot of people pick songs because they like the song, but they don't know what the song's about. So for me, maybe it's a little bit OCD, but I'm listening to a song to hear what the song's about. And when a song's talking about something that's got nothing to do about getting married, nothing to do about love, and they're playing it, I sort of just cringe. And I cringe in general when I hear anybody singing at a wedding. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't understand it, but there's a few things in my life that really make me cringe, and no doubt I'll touch on them at some stage in the future. But one of them is certainly people singing at weddings, whether it be an actual musician there on the day doing something live and singing, or pre-recorded music. So for me, I struggled so much trying to find a song that picked and thinking about the lyrics and what would fit and what didn't. And I didn't actually realize that it was the lyrics and the singing that was the problem initially. I spent so much time going through all the songs that had meant a lot to me, and every time I thought about them in the context of the ceremony, I couldn't handle it. It was just too much. Like, I was almost ruining the song. And then I felt so guilty because I thought, how can the most important day of our lives ruin something else that's important to me as well? But then finally it clicked, and I realized what the problem was. And I realized that I need music. I need instrumental. I need something without direct interpretation. I need something that creates an atmosphere without words, that people have more of an opportunity to embrace the day and the atmosphere without being directed in a certain way through lyrics. And yes, more than likely I've been overthinking this way too much, but these are the types of things that go through my head and why I get headaches. For me, it just was such a relief to be able to realize that and pick some really great pieces of music that just didn't have any singing in it whatsoever. So Nicholas McCarthy was just perfect to really sort of, I guess, give the wedding a bit of formality and really tie in with the look of the wedding. You know, we didn't go for some sort of rock and roll wedding or anything like that. It wasn't an informal wedding. It was quite formal. We really sort of made an effort to really sort of tie it in with, you know, I guess what Jess has always wanted. You know, Jess is like most women have dreamt of getting married and dreamt of their wedding day since they were a child. So for us, it was important just to try and I guess meet a lot of those things as much as possible. So that the Nicholas McCarthy stuff sort of set the tone for the ceremony itself. And then once the ceremony was over, then it was almost like, well, all right, here's a bit of rock music and here's where the night's going to go afterwards. So on the topic of music, and I'll try not to jump forward too much, but I know that I do waffle a bit. I spent hours and hours picking songs for the reception. I had to pick a bunch of songs for the wedding entrances for us and our family and bridal party. So I had, just off the top of my head, we had picked Elvis, The Knack, King Diamond. I'm missing somebody. Oh, far out. Who's the moron that sings Never Gonna Give You Up? That guy. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but and then Jess and I came out to Kiss's Love Gun. So we really, I guess, at that point by the reception, we really wanted to. Actually, it wasn't King Diamond, it was Merciful Fate. Sorry, I think it was Gypsy or The Oath. No, Gypsy. And yeah, we just wanted to set the tone for the rest of the night, and just that this was fun. Now this is something cool, and yeah, we both love metal and hard rock, so that's what we're going to play. So I had picked 5 hours worth of music on a USB stick and primed the DJ beforehand and had it all set up. Now, it started off really well. We had Taiketo playing, Noiseworks, Kiss, heaps of different AOR and 80s rock. It was really, really cool. And every time a song kicked in, I was looking over at some of my mates who knew the songs, and you could see them getting excited and looking over and a bit of a thumbs up. And it was really cool. But about halfway through the reception, obviously the DJ wasn't happy with the energy in the room and decided, well, I'm just going to put my own music on. So suddenly he put on a remixed version of whatever that that Grease Lightning song is. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I hate Grease and I hate musicals. That's another thing that I cringe at. It's just I don't have enough hate in the world for these things. And as soon as this thing started up, I just saw red, and about half the room, mainly my friends and some family, looked over at my direction, just waiting for me to react. And I sat there for a moment and just went and looked down at the dance floor. And of course, all of my family and Jess's family are starting to get up and dance. And I thought, you know what? No one's dancing to this 80s hard rock stuff. Some of my mates are getting a bit loose and drinking and they're starting to get into it. But more or less, the majority of the room aren't really dancing and whatever. And look, I don't really care. I don't like dancing. I think dancing is, anyway, it's not me. But I could see people getting up and really enjoying themselves. And that's when I had to pick my battles. And that was a battle that I was not going to fight, and I let it go. And even now, thinking about it and talking about it, I can feel myself getting tense and feeling hatred for the DJ. And I thought, how dare you decide to dictate which direction this wedding goes? And for the rest of the night, he more or less played his own music, apart from the exit song, which we had picked, which was Halfway to Heaven by Europe. And then once we'd left, there was the final song just to get everyone out, which was White Snake's We Wish You Well. So that was cool. But for the second half of the night, most of it was the DJ making his own stock standard wedding picks. And it was cringe after cringe. It was just disgusting music. But I guess the night is not just about us, it's about everybody around us. And everybody had a great time and nobody flinched for the most part. Even my mates that big hard rock and metal fans, many of them were getting up because they were well and truly sloshed and were on the dance floor dancing. So I have to say that, it was, it was good in the end. It was good in the end, and I have to just get over it and move on. Also on the topic of music, Jess and I, our bridal dance was Journey's When You Love a Woman. That was Jess's pick. She wanted that. So that worked out really well. It was really cool. And we had, Jess had one with her dad, which was a Billy Joel song, which I can't remember off the top of my head. And then the first sort of song that got the bridal party up on the dance floor was Icehouse's We Can Get Together, which was really cool. I'm glad that we had that one in there. So, I mean, you guys all know, and many of you who are musicians or music fans know how important music is. And for me, this was a massive part of the wedding. Music's been pretty much the main part of my life for God knows how long. And it was important to have music represented in a particular way for this important day. And while, at times it was a little bit disappointing with the different changes that were made, but overall I was happy that we were able to pick key songs for key moments, and it meant a lot and it added a lot more to the day. So yeah, I'm thankful that we're able to do that. Now, the rest of the wedding, I'm not going to really sort of touch a lot on. It was just great. Everyone had a great time. We had grappa on all the tables. Everyone was we were worried whether anyone was actually going to bother drinking it, but pretty much the majority of the grappa got drunk, and the results of that were a lot of very red-faced, happy people falling all over themselves on the dance floor, which was really cool. But everyone had a great time from what I could see. There's so many photos that were taken. It just, the drinks were flowing and it was just really good. The food was great. The venue was really cool for anyone, I guess, in Sydney that wants to know where we got married. It was at La Montage at Lilyfield in the inner west, closer to the city. And that was really nice. I'm trying to think of anything else that was worth mentioning on the wedding day itself. I cannot recall anything in particular. When I was talking about near perfect wedding day, the other thing that I think is worth mentioning, which is quite funny and humorous, is that in between the ceremony and the reception, the bridal party usually goes off and gets their photos taken. So we had a photographer for the day who was taking all of our proper photos, and off we went. So we went to Centennial Park, which was a last minute change. We decided that we would go there. Our photographer had a couple of ideas of photos, so we jumped in our cars and off we went. And this particular place at Centennial Park was was fantastic. It was these large, tall trees it was really sort of shady and dark, but because the day had been overcast at least in the afternoon, it was starting to rain. There was a real stormy sort of feel and ambience around the place. So the photos that he took sort of really captured that dramatic tone, that dramatic feel to the moment. But like anything, Centennial Park is a place where people get married, and there was another wedding that was taking place that was several hundred meters away from us, and it was over a ridge. So you couldn't actually see the wedding, but you could see people filing over the ridge off in the background behind us. Nowhere near us, we weren't anywhere near them, but you could see them. So like, oh, there's another wedding. So anyway, that was fine. We're getting some photos done. We're not intruding. We're nowhere near them. They couldn't see us, apart from when they were walking towards the wedding itself. And at one point, and luckily we were starting to more or less wrap up anyway because it was starting to rain, a massive stretch Hummer rocks up. And as it's rocking up, the back window of the stretch Hummer opens up, and this girl, whether it's the bride or whether it was someone in the bridal party, sticks their whole torso out the window and goes, "Fuck off, get fucked, this is our wedding, piss off," and just screaming. Now, she's about 200 meters away from us, so she's not just, yelling from a short distance. She's yelling from quite a fair distance away and extremely loud. So we're laughing and going, "Oh, geez, we better go." So we started walking. And we're like, "Yep." So we put up our hands, like sort of waves, like, "Yep, no worries." And then we started walking. And as we're walking back towards the cars, Matt, our photographer, is just taking some quick photos as we're walking back. This lady does not give up. If anything, she gets more abusive from the stretch Hummer. She's just going hard. She's just getting more and more vulgar, and she's just getting more and more stroppy. And we're just going, "What the fuck?" And so we're turning around and we're starting to get our backs up a little bit. And then, Belinda, Jess's maid of honor, I'm pretty sure she turned around and flipped them the bird. And then we're sort of like yelling back at them. And then everyone's sort of trying to calm each other down. So, "No, don't do it. Don't stoop to their level." So anyway, we're walking back towards the car, and then suddenly a park ranger comes out, and the park ranger comes towards us, and we're like, "Oh, here we go." So we started walking, but he caught up to us, and our photographer said, "Is there a problem?" And he said, "Yes, there is." And he said, "Do you have a permit?" And we were like, and so we just went, "No." And he said, "You need a permit to be here. People pay a lot of money to get married here, and you can't just rock up and without a permit and just, invade their space." And I said, "Well, we weren't invading their space. We're nowhere near them." And he said, "That doesn't matter." And so he said, "You guys don't know any better, but you," and pointed out a photographer, "should know better." So anyway, we said, "Look, we're going now." He said, you need to leave the park immediately." So we got into our cars and drove past. We had to drive past the other wedding party to leave the park grounds, but we were in two cars. So Jess and I are in the second car. So we agreed that we would just look at each other and laugh like we're having a great time when we drove past, and we didn't make eye contact. So not that it was a bad part of the day, but it was, I guess, a bit disappointing to have any form of confrontation, but it was humorous. It was so ridiculous that it was funny, and we definitely made light of it, and we just felt sorry for the wedding party and also for that person in the wedding party, whether that was a bride or not, that they would get so upset over something like that obviously it would have some sort of impact on their special day. So, there you go. So yeah, overall, it was a fantastic day. Just a lot of, I was going to say great vibes, but I hate saying that, but I did. So there you go. There's lots of great vibes. And it was just a nice day to show some gratitude towards other people. And I hope that I was able to express that well with the people around me. That night, Jess and I stayed at the Intercontinental in Sydney. We had a really amazing Mercedes-Benz. It wasn't even a limo, but it was like I don't even know what it was. It was the most incredible car I've been in. But anyway, whatever. So we stayed at the Intercontinental that night, and then the next morning we had lunch with our parents, and then we went to Melbourne for 4 days. And the purpose of this was about 12 months before the wedding, probably just under 12 months. before the wedding, when we found out that we were playing Prog Power, the band was playing Prog Power, that is, and we worked out what it was, we realised that Prog Power was literally about a week and a half after the wedding, which would obviously impact any sort of honeymoon. So, it wasn't the best scenario, and we weren't terribly happy about it as far as the timing, the sequence of events, but, nothing could be done. And we had to sort of compromise. Jess had to compromise to let me go and do my thing, and I had to compromise as well and try and work out a way around it to try and find the best possible scenario. Yes, this is all first world problems, but it's an important day. We want to make sure that we make the most of it, and I'm not fleeing to the other side of the world as soon as we get married either. So we decided that we would do 4 days in Melbourne straight away, and then once we get back from Melbourne, I'll go off to the US for a week and a half, and then come back, and then we'll go to Europe for 4.5, 5 weeks. So it worked out quite well. So we did 4 days in Melbourne. It was literally a big lazy fest where we stayed at the Windsor, which was this really nice old school posh hotel. And we just spent the 4 days eating, drinking, and me holding Jess's shopping bags. So it was cool just to unwind from, I guess, all the tension and stress leading up to the wedding, and just not do a great deal. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. So it was good. And I do apologize to a lot of my Melbourne friends who I would normally reach out to and organize a catch up of some sort. But this is definitely one that we just needed to do our own thing and just chill out and lay low. So it was a really, really good time and well needed. So it worked out quite well. But that was it from the wedding side of things. So I'll move on to the next part. So what happened was just to get an understanding of, I guess, the time frame, we got married on the Friday. We went to Melbourne on the Saturday. We got back to Sydney on the Wednesday evening at about 10:30, and I was back at the airport flying to LA 7 a.m. on the Thursday morning. So there was literally no time to stop. I actually had to, and I think I mentioned this in the last podcast episode, I had to pack everything for wedding, Melbourne, and the US a couple of weeks beforehand. I had to have everything pretty much ready to go. I couldn't just pack after each little stage. So I had to sort of pack everything in advance. I even had another suitcase ready to go with half my stuff ready for Europe as well. So I sort of really had to plan ahead and really think ahead of all the things that were going to happen. So anyway, with the US, so we flew to LA. All of our flights were with Virgin and Delta for those plane buffs who actually care. And what we did, the whole purpose of this for people that don't know, is that we got invited to play Prog Power USA, which is a annual progressive and power metal festival that happens in Atlanta, Georgia every year. And some of the best bands of these genres go there and play. This particular year we were sharing the stages with bands such as Dragon Force, Blind Guardian, Devin Townsend, Fate's Warning, Spock's Beard, our mates Vanishing Point. Geez, I can't even remember half of them now. It's just become a blur, but an amazing lineup, and it's such a pedigree of bands. We were absolutely blown away that we were invited to play the festival. So we were going over with the purpose of this. Now, as you will all be aware, with the whole visa process, it was such a pain in the ass to get it all happening, and we're very lucky that we had sponsors, and we had Mark from Play America and Milton from Infinity Concerts helping us out with getting all the visa stuff over the line. But even with their involvement, there was still a lot for us to do as well, and it's not an easy process. And I've learned that in the last couple of weeks, the US has increased their visa prices as well, so their visa fees. So it's just become that much harder to be a musician and tour the United States, which is a big shame. But with that in mind, we were not able to organise a proper tour. It's just all the documentation, everything had to be done several months in advance. And it was just too much going on for us to try and look at other shows. And part of this was to really, I guess, emphasize our debut in the US. We'd never played in the US. Dungeon hadn't, Lord hadn't. And I think it was quite the novelty and quite a momentous occasion to be able to play this festival as our first ever show in the US. So for us, it was really to really accent and put focus on that debut show, but also to use it as, I guess, a welcome to our US fans and a bit of an introduction and a bit of a promo trip as well, just to show that, we are here and we exist. And for those that have been waiting, here we are. And then hopefully we'll be back relatively soon as well. Now, we were a little bit paranoid, or at least I was, with jet lag and really making sure that we put on a good show. So what we decided to do is that we would do a few days in the US before we got to Atlanta. So what we did is we flew to LA and we had a few days in LA. Then we flew to New York and had a few days there. And then we flew to Atlanta for the festival. And we were there for the entire festival, all 4 days, before flying back home to Sydney. So just really quickly, I'll put some thoughts out there with the US trip itself and Prog Power. I'm going to miss heaps of things. I'm going to miss heaps of names. So disclaimer right away that no one get offended if I miss something crucial, because there's just been that many things that have happened that I'm bound to miss something. But LA was cool. I've been to LA a few times now. For some of the guys, it's been their first time going there, so I guess their impressions will be very different to mine. But we stayed at a very crappy motel in Hollywood itself, which was, I think, sort of lived up to the reputation and the atmosphere of Hollywood. It's very scummy and sleazy. So it was kind of cool in a way, but it was still not the nicest of places, especially coming from staying in like the Intercontinental in the Windsor from my wedding, going to this really scummy hotel in Hollywood. But it was cool. We were there for a couple of days. We went out to Venice Beach. Mark wanted to check out the Muscle Beach and where Arnie was back in the 80s or 70s and whatnot. And that was cool. We got to walk around and soak up the sun. The weather was quite good, although extremely smoggy. So we were acting like tourists that day. And we also went to the ESP head office in Hollywood. So we got to meet up with Chris and some of their A&R guys and some of the dudes in the factory that make some of the custom guitars. So it was really, really cool to finally, I guess, put faces to names and really meet in person and shake their hands and I guess just for us, we're all ESP endorsees. So, we've got a long history with ESP Japan, ESP Australia, and we've started to build connections with our friends in the US. So, we really wanted to make sure that we made the effort to go to the head office in the US and say hi to them. And hopefully that's just built stronger bonds and relationships with these guys, and hopefully we'll work together at some point in time in the future, or at least we've built some or created some more friends that we can have a drink with next time we're in town. So that's really cool. So we enjoyed that, and it was great to hear some stories and walk around and meet some of the guys that are extremely talented, building some incredible guitars. So that was really good and a nice little thing for the band to do. We also did the usual sort of hotspots. We went and, we saw the Hollywood sign. We walked up and down the strip. We dodged all the crazy people. We went to the Rainbow. A friend of ours, Christy, came out and met us. Shout out to Christy if she's listening. And we had dinner there and checked out the Lemmy statue, which was kind of weird. It looks like he's in a toilet cubicle. I don't really get that, but still cool. So we more or less just chilled out. It was very relaxing. We got around and did a few hot spots, but just ate and drank and had a good time. From there, we flew from LA to New York. We had some issues with Delta with our all of our gear. they've changed systems, and there was all sorts of issues. They were trying to charge us for extra bags, and it took about an hour in LA to finally convince them to go and look at another system and find the special mentions that allow us extra pieces of luggage. So all in the end, it all worked out, but we had the same problem in LA, in New York, and in Atlanta as well. So it was just it was a never-ending nightmare. But by the time we got to Atlanta and we were having this same conversation, we more or less knew exactly what to say, but it still wasn't an easy process. So I didn't mind Delta overall. Like, I flew United Airlines the year before. There's, you got people that are very passionate about either airline. To me, they're more or less the same. I think in future, I probably still would stick with Delta just because they're partnered with Virgin, and I get some sweet Virgin points for flying with them. So that would be pretty much the only reason. But as far as service, reliability, et cetera, for all you airline buffs, I didn't really pick much of a difference between United and Delta. They were pretty much the same thing. So yeah, we went from LA to New York. New York, this is my second time in New York. I'd been there 12 months prior, and it's an incredible city. I was overwhelmed last year when I went there for the first time, and it was exactly the same this time around as well. The size of Manhattan is just, I can't even wrap my head around it. And we really took advantage of our time there this time. I mean, last year when I went, I crammed, actually, to be honest, I crammed quite a lot in the afternoon that I had in New York. I literally I didn't even have 24 hours there. So I managed to do quite a bit. But this time we had 2.5 days, I think, or 2 days, 2 full days there. And we really covered a lot of ground. We did a lot. So we, just for people that are interested, we checked out the Rockefeller Tower. I can't remember what it's called. It's a particular tower. All the locals say it's better to go up there than the Empire State Building. So we did that. So there's amazing views of New York. We did the Staten Island ferry, went over and got off at Staten Island and caught the ferry back, and obviously passing the Statue of Liberty that way. So that was actually, there's a tip for people that haven't been to New York. If you want to go and see the Statue of Liberty, but you don't want to pay a ridiculous amount of money to get on a ferry to go to the island that the Statue of Liberty's on, just catch the Staten Island ferry and just go from one side to the other. It's free, and you more or less cruise right past it, so you can still get some great photos. If you do want to actually go and stand in front of it and go up it and whatever, then different story. But if you're not that keen on it, the Staten Island ferry is an awesome option to do. So that was really cool. We also went to Central Park. We had a quick walk through a little bit of Central Park. I didn't realize how massive that place is. Of course, I went back to the 9/11 memorial. We went there, but this is my second time there. I had a bit more of an opportunity to take it in this time, which was good. But it's just such a odd place. It's, for a place that is so intense and has so much baggage attached to it, it's really hard to get into the right headspace for it, because you look around and there are selfie sticks everywhere. There's little vendor carts selling 9/11 memorial memorabilia, merchandise, and it's just so touristy. It's just ridiculous. There's just people getting selfies, taking photos everywhere. And look, I don't have any, for me, I mean, I don't have the right to say what's appropriate and what's not, because I'm not from New York. But I don't think there's anything wrong, so to speak, with just taking the odd photo here and there, just to, I guess, memories, and just to document it, I guess, and to show other people what it looks like, and just, I guess, to try and, I guess, to remember and to pass on, to remind people of what happened as well. But when people are getting selfies, it's just, I don't know, it's so tacky, and it seems so disrespectful, and it was just a lot of tacky tourists there, and it was a real shame. But I guess that's, you can't avoid it, unfortunately, and people are going to make money off it, and I guess that's just life. But it was good to go there. It was good just to touch base, and I think that's just something that I think personally for me, and probably everybody should do every time they visit New York, is just stop by there, just to walk past quickly or whatever, I think it's a good thing to do. A lot of these things couldn't have happened without our now friend Scott. I say now friend because we didn't know Scott before we met him, except for Tim. Tim had known Scott, who I think they worked together years and years ago. And Scott's originally from Sydney, so he lives in New York now and works in the IT world and is doing quite well. And he took some time out of his busy schedule to basically be tour guide for us, and he was amazing. I have massive props for Scott and a massive thank you if he ever listens to this episode. He made a lot of these things happen where we wouldn't have known what to do or how to get there or how to time everything. He also ensured that we found a good place to get coffee, which from my point of view, I mainly drink long blacks, so it's not so much of a big deal for me. Like, I can just drink stock standard coffee and it's not as others would say toilet water. But for the other guys, it was a different story and they really struggled. The coffee in the US, unfortunately, guys, my American friends, your coffee's not good at all. And there's very few places that we can see or that we've come across that had anything remotely decent. But Scott managed to find us a tiny little place that was locked away down the bottom of the Rockefeller Center. And I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head. I should have written that down before I recorded this. But I've got a feeling blue was in the word. But anyway, it was right down on the bottom level of Rockefeller Plaza up towards some of the toilets or something like that. So very hard. The locals would know where it is, but no one else would. So it was really cool for Scott to take time out and really look after us. The hospitality was amazing. He really, really took care of us, and I think we're forever thankful for what he did. We stayed in Brooklyn during our time in New York. The main reason for that is that accommodation is so expensive in New York. I cannot get my head around how expensive it is. And as a result, I went towards Airbnb to find something. And unfortunately, even for Airbnb, it's ridiculously expensive. But I did manage to find a really, really cool place in Brooklyn. And we based ourselves there for the 3 nights that we were in New York. I think it was 3 nights: Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night. Yep. And it was awesome. It was just typical Brooklyn, all the stereotypes that you think of from all the movies and everything like that. We were in one of those typical apartment blocks. We were in the top floor, and we had this nice little 2-bedroom unit apartment. And it had everything that we needed. We were close to the restaurants and bars and everything. There's a little supermarket as well where I got some beer, and it was really cool. And it really felt like we were living there for a few days instead of staying in a sterile or scummy hotel. The only other thing I think of, I'm just trying to think of, there's something I've missed. Also, while we were in New York, we saw Circus Maximus play at the studio at Webster Hall. I think I'm getting that right. And we did a little bit of a meetup beforehand. Just we've got some New York fans that were going to the show, and we thought, well, we were originally trying to get onto this show. Milton was trying to help us play this show, but for a whole range of different reasons, it just couldn't happen. So that was cool. We were happy just to be there anyway. So we decided to do a little meetup beforehand, and we had some drinks across the road at the bar, across from the venue. And that was good. We got to meet a lot of people for the first time, make friends with some new people as well. And we drank a lot of alcohol, and it was an extremely messy night. So I'm sure there'll be some video that'll surface at some stage down the track of some of those moments. The show itself was really cool, although very hazy. I don't remember a great deal of it, to be honest, so I'm not going to really comment. But I don't think I paid for, I think I paid for maybe 2 drinks the entire night. So the hospitality of the locals was fantastic. And they certainly made sure that I was feeling very seedy the next morning as well. So massive props to all the guys that really took the time to say hello and hang out with us for a bit. It was really, really cool. And it was nice to be in New York and be there as a band, like all of us, and being able to meet people that enjoy our music. It was a cool feeling, and it was a bit of a pinch yourself moments. And hopefully the next time we come back, we'll actually play a show there, and that'll be the next little milestone to kick over. So that'll be cool. But overall, New York is just such an amazing city. I'd love to take Jess there one day for a few days to really sort of soak it up. But I think that's going to be something where we're going to have to save a shitload of money for a long time to really sort of make sure that we have a good time there, because it is not a cheap city at all to be a tourist in. But nevertheless, we had a great time. So from there, we went to Atlanta. This is the second time that we went to Atlanta on this trip. Between LA and New York, we actually had to stop over in Atlanta and get on another plane to go to New York from Atlanta. So we had a few different flight changes. So it was quite ridiculous to be flying into Atlanta only to be coming back there in a few days' time afterwards. So this was the second time we actually got to the airport there in Atlanta. And we were there for 5 days or 5 nights or something like that off the top of my head. And we stayed at one of the Marriotts. And I'm not going to bother trying to work out which one it is because there's a whole bunch in Atlanta. But we stayed at one of the Marriotts near the venue. That was really cool. And we were there for Prog Power. And I'm just trying to think of the best way of covering this, because so much happened in the 4 days of the festival that it's really hard to recall a lot of it. And I had a completely different experience to what I had the first time around. I've been lucky that I was able to go as a fan last year, and then to come this year as a performer, as a musician, to be able to perform at the festival. It was really cool to see both sides. And as a result, I had 2 very different experiences. This time coming along, we were the first band on the first day. Now, initially I sort of thought, I don't know how this is going to go. We might be playing to a very small crowd. It's still great that we're playing the festival and whatnot, and there's a lot of benefits of playing, but don't know how this crowd's going to go. We were pleasantly surprised. The place was pretty much packed, and we had an amazing show. We played for an hour. One of the benefits of playing Prog Power is that there's no small spots. Minimum sets an hour from all the bands. So it was really cool to have a legitimate set and get up there and play for people and give people, especially there's so many people that had come to the festival, people that had come from overseas as well. We had some guys come from South America to Atlanta just to see us play as well, which was really cool. So it was good to be able to give a lot of these people a real set, a real hour of music instead of coming up and playing for 15 or 20 minutes like some of these festivals give bands, unfortunately. So it was good to really have a legitimate amount of songs to play for people. And we had a great set. We had a really good time. Before we started and doing our sound checks, we had some technical difficulties with wireless units and there's a little bit of teething issues at the last minute, but we managed to get it all working, and we had a really good show. I mean, if I am to be ever so modest, it was really, really good. We had a great time, and it was just such a surreal moment to look out into the crowd and recognize people that I'd met last year and recognize people that have been fans of the band for quite a number of years as well. It was such a surreal moment, and almost like a circle finally connecting again, and just completing this path, this whole thing where we've been trying for so many years to come over and play in the US, and finally we've done it. And not only have we done it, but we've been able to do it in such a way that is just beyond our expectations, and it was just fantastic. As soon as we finished, we had a signing session. The signing session went for like double the amount of time that we were actually scheduled to do it, and it was just amazing to have so many people come up with T-shirts and CDs and posters, getting stuff signed and getting photos done, and it was amazing to have so many people say thank you. And I've never said thank you so many times in my life as well. It was just such a great moment, and it was just a nice little nod to get after such a long period of time for the band to get to this point, and it was just really, really cool. Now, the real benefits of playing first on the first day is that it's out of the way. We don't have to worry about preparing and behaving for the rest of the festival, playing on the third or fourth day or whatever it might be. We're first, we play a great set. We get the crowd all pumped up and excited for the whole festival. And then we pack up our gear, store it away, and then we just enjoy ourselves for the rest of the festival. And it was fantastic. In our eyes, we had the best spot in the entire fest. It was really, really cool. Now, the subsequent days of the festival are a extreme blur. However, I didn't do as much partying as I did the first year around. There was only a couple of occasions that I went to the courtyard, which is part of the Hotel the Artmore, which is near the venue, and it's usually where they have all their main after parties after each night of the festival. And it's a lot of fun. There's a reputation around these after parties in general. It gets a bit crazy. There's lots of booze, and it's a really, really fun time. Everyone's super happy, and I've met some amazing people from last year, just standing around in the courtyard at 3:00 in the morning, having the most ridiculous conversations. And it's just a fantastic way to connect with people further. This year, I only went twice and for a very short period of time. Reasons, well, I don't know. There was reasons where I just wasn't feeling it, to be honest. I wasn't feeling like drinking. As far as the guys in my band now, more or less, everybody, Mark doesn't drink anymore. Tim and Daryl will enjoy a drink, but they don't drink a lot. And it's certainly the dynamics changed in the band, which is, a really, really good thing. We're a lot more well-oiled. We're a lot better as a band. We function a lot better as a band with less alcohol going through the band. As a result, my consumption, I guess over the last 12 months has certainly reduced dramatically as well. And the other thing was I was really interested in, I guess, trying to connect with people and talk with people and whatnot. And sometimes booze just sort of gets in the road of that. So I certainly did have a good drink while I was there, but not to the extent that I did the year before. And what I did find that was different to last year, I flew under the radar a lot more, and it was more of a case that I would talk to people and introduce myself, and then people would get to know me. This year was a different story because, well, not only had I met people last year, so, there was already some connections there, but people, I guess, had seen us play or had discovered the band in the last 12 months leading up to the festival. And I just had the case where there was a bunch of people that were hanging around and just being very, very clingy would be the word. And it was just very hard to maintain conversations with people and just be able to have a normal conversation at times. Many occasions standing there and talking to someone and really, really enjoying a conversation, then having somebody walk up that unfortunately might have had too many drinks and just butts into the conversation and just takes over and tries to move me away for me to get their attention. I'm trying to spit this out. And look, I can't fault it, and it's definitely first world problems because it's nice to have so many people that want to talk to you. So this is definitely not a bitching session whatsoever. But everyone's got the best intentions as well. There was nobody there that was mean or malicious or anything of the sort. Everybody was happy and excited and just really. Everyone was good-natured there, and you can't fault that. And that's one of the coolest things about this festival is that everybody is super cool, and it is, when you go there, it's like a big family. It's just, and I get that even more after this time than I did the first time that I went. But there were times where it was just so hard to stand there and have conversations with people. And I almost found myself trying to hide at times to avoid people because it just got a little bit claustrophobic. And so I did find myself not hanging out as much as I have in the past, especially after the shows. I definitely hung out in the foyer and chatted to a lot of people during the festival itself. But when it came to afterwards, it just at times it got a bit too much. So I went back to the hotel a lot of the nights at a reasonable hour. I was still getting back about 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that, but it wasn't a 5 or 6 o'clock effort like I had the year before. Also on that note, the last night, which is usually the big finale and the big party, I didn't stay out. I slipped away, and there was a lot of people I didn't say goodbye to. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. I was desperately trying to get all the merchandise sorted and going to the right people, and shout out to Mike for helping out with our vinyl, the leftover vinyl, and taking that back to New York for us, and just making sure all the money and everything's sorted. But more importantly, I had a hard drive full of important files that I'd been given, and I had to get them back to the hotel. And it was just, I was exhausted, and I knew what it felt like from the year before to be at Atlanta airport for several hours, hungover with no sleep. It is not a pretty thing. And for whatever reason, I had a moment of maturity and clarity where I decided that I did not want to feel like that. And I decided to go back to the hotel with all the stuff and not go back out. So, and apologies for those people. I did send a lot of messages out to people just to say goodbye and thank you and whatnot. And I certainly would have done it a different way. I think if I had another, if I was to do it again, but at that point in time, I just needed to get out of there. So, but what a festival, hey? I mean, if you want to hear more about my thoughts on the festival itself, go back and listen to I don't even know what episode it is, but one of the episodes from about a year ago, where I reflect on my last trip to the US. There is a lot more insight into how the festival works, what it's like, and the people that run it. But before I end on that note, massive thank you to all of the sponsors. So that's Mike, Frank and Laura, Brian, and of course Milton, Nathan and Glenn for really helping us out and making it all become a reality for us. We're incredibly honored and thankful that you guys have helped make it happen for us. I'm really struggling to talk this morning, and we'll forever be in your debt, and we'll be forever thankful for what you guys have done. And hopefully it won't be the first and last time that we cross paths again. Now, moving forward, what else do I have here on my Post-it notes? I'm going to have to take a photo of these Post-it notes because there's just so many. I just had to write them all out just to try and remember things. Also, just on Prog Power, really quickly, I forgot to mention my music highlights. People are always keen to find out who liked what and whatnot. I didn't get to catch all the bands, unfortunately, but I catch the majority of the bands, at least for a song or two. And one band that I walked into just because I just thought I'd watch out of curiosity for a song was Freedom Call. Definitely not the style of music that I would normally listen to freely, but I thought I would just go and watch just to see them live, and I was extremely impressed with them. They were an amazingly entertaining band, and I found myself standing there for the majority of the set. It was just really, really cool, and not the type of music that I would normally gravitate towards. It's a little bit too cheesy for me. It's just really cheesy power metal, but it was cool. It was really, really cool. They put on such a good show, and they've got such great stage banter. They interacted with the crowd really, really well, and it was just such an entertaining show. So that was my surprise of the festival. My highlight of the festival was finally seeing Green Carnation play and seeing them play Light of Day, Day of Darkness in full. Mark and I sat up the back in the seats and just took the whole thing in, and it was just incredible. It was just one of those moments where I bought that CD when I was a teenager, and that CD was so important to me, and got me through a lot when I was a kid, for various reasons, musically and whatnot. And And it was cool to come full circle and finally see this live. And I really made an effort to take it in and really reflect on all those years ago and all those years that have passed and where I am now. When I was watching them, it was a really great moment for me, and definitely a highlight. And I was lucky that the guys were staying at the same hotel as me. And on the last day, on the Sunday, when we were all leaving to go back to our various corners of the world, I quickly went up and just shook their hand and just said thank you. And it was just nice to, I guess, to come full circle and not only see them play, but also just to quickly just say thank you to them and just leave it at that. There was no need to do anything more than that. I just needed to pass on my thanks to them, and it was just nice to do that. It was really cool. So they were my main highlights from it. It was great to see Vanishing Point play. It was so cool to be there with another Australian band performing. And it was good to stand there in the crowd and watch them. So I was standing there with Evan from I Fear and Black Majesty, and we were watching the guys play. It was really good, and they were enjoying it as much as we were, and probably maybe even more so. For those that were at the show, you would have seen, especially Chris, all smiles, and he was, I think, in near tears of joy being on stage. And it was a really cool moment. It was great to see. But so fantastic festival. And look, if anyone's ever been tempted to go, I strongly urge you to spend the money and get over there. Make a trip out of it and go and visit a few sites around the country. But make sure you stop by Atlanta and go and see the Prog Power Festival. It's incredible. I think next year's already sold out anyway, but there might be a few tickets still going. But it's definitely worth going. It's a unique experience, and it is quite addictive. And before I move on to the next part, the final thing with Prog Power, will I go next year? Will I make it a hat trick? I've had some very, very kind offers that have been made for people to try and help me, and even Jess to go over next year. While I won't be accepting any of them because, well, I guess I'm probably a little bit too proud, I will try. Can't make any promises because there's a lot happening in the new year. But look, if I can make it happen, I certainly would go back again. I think it's just an amazing festival, and be great to go to the US with Jess and do a bit of sightseeing and also go to the festival as well. So we'll play it by ear. And if I don't make it back next year for mainly financial reasons, then I'll certainly be back at the festival at one time or another in the future, in the years to come. So it certainly won't be the last time that people will see me there. So it's a fantastic place, and there's no way that I could never go back again. All right, now moving forward, what I might do actually is, I'm watching the time, I might come back and do a part 2 of this. So I've been crapping on for an hour and a half. This is a long podcast, and I waffle. So I'm going to leave it at this for now. I'm going to put the next part 2 of this up next week, and I'll record this probably later in the day. It's about 20 past 8 in the morning. I'm working from home today, so I've got about 10 or so minutes before I jump into that. So I'm going to move away from this and change hats for a while, and I'll record the second part shortly, but you guys will hear it in the week to come. Before I wrap things up really quickly, the usual housekeeping. If you really want to support this podcast, the best way to do it is word of mouth, and share those YouTube links around. Get people to listen to a particular episode, especially if they are interested in a particular topic. I've covered quite a range of different interests and topics. So there might be one particular thing that appeals to a friend of yours that might enjoy listening to the podcast itself. But please spread the word. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those different places I'm using quite frequently. Any way that you can retweet, like, comment, share, whatever it might be, it all helps. It's really, really cool. It means a lot to me, and it ensures that the podcast reaches more people as well. If you want to do more, Amazon, you can go to my website, andysocial.net, and click on the Amazon portal link if you shop on Amazon. Better yet, you can do a right click on that portal link, copy the link, and save it into your bookmark toolbar. So that way you can click on that link each time you go to Amazon and do shopping. And it is a massive help to me. As I said before at the start of the episode, every order that someone makes, I get a tiny, tiny little bit of money. It's very, very small. But when a lot of you are doing it, it makes a big difference, and it helps self-fund this podcast. It's not for me to put my feet up and enjoy the high life. Far from it. It's just to ensure that I can keep doing this podcast and keep bringing you guys lots of interesting conversations and different things in the future. So it's all about giving back. That's about it. More episodes coming over the coming weeks. It's going to take a little bit of time to get back into the swing of things and get momentum. So I am not promising anything at this stage as far as how frequent they're going to be coming out, but I will eventually find my groove again and get back on track. So this is just to, I guess, do a bit of a catch up, get you guys back on board, and I'll do my best to get things moving as quickly as possible. But thank you so much, and part 2 coming next week. See you guys. Bye.